Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 56 today for the Brazilian Grand Prix in Season 4. If you guys did miss the opening round to this brand new season at the Australian Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that episode out before you see this one, and even the pre-season video to Season 4 if you're still a bit confused at why we went from Australia to Brazil. I'm loving this custom calendar, and it's awesome to have Sao Paulo so early in the calendar. We've got a sprint round straight away for round number 2, and that follows on from such an exciting opening round around Albert Park, where Sebastian Vettel, our reigning champion, the 5-time world champion now in this alternate F1 universe, took the first victory for the Audi Sport Works team. We came home in second place, the exact same result as the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix ended in Season 3, but of course we're driving for our own Martini Audi AAR F1 team. But it was a very, very solid race. I think we learned a lot about the new cars that we've got. Obviously our car, very, very different to last year's. I think we've got a lot of power in comparison to Season 3 in terms of the engine, but aero is lacking, and that is making the start of these races quite difficult. But it was a big learning curve for the entire grid just to see what the pecking order is like. Of course, we've got all new teams in the form of Porsche and Andretti, an expanded Audi operation in F1, and of course the V8s are back. So, you know, last episode was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed making that one. It was a really fun one to race, and I loved your guys' reaction to the brand new season. So just before we get into the rest of it, appreciate the response to this brand new season. Really sweet to see you guys are digging all the changes and the work that's going in to making this new season as best as it can be. But let's get into it then. We get some R&D points for the ERS issue we had in the middle of last race. Remember, the ERS got locked for, like, you know, was half a lap, so we couldn't deploy it. So we got an extra 200 points to kickstart a bit more development, maybe going into the next few episodes. But we're getting into this sprint weekend then. Friday qualifying for then obviously the sprint on Saturday, and then the full Grand Prix on Sunday. And it lines up pretty damn well. I didn't plan it to, but it lines up pretty damn well with a very exciting real-life Brazilian Grand Prix sprint weekend we just had this past weekend, with George Russell getting the sprint win and the first ever win for Mercedes IRL in the season. So let's hope for some in-game action that can equal that kind of entertainment we saw over the weekend. Q1 pretty straightforward, just trying to get through into the second session. A kind of typically slower start for myself and Otto Carlos Sainz there in P12. Of course, he had an engine failure in that first race, so really curious to see now, without any car issues, maybe what Carlos can do. But it's probably going to be another rather tight affair. Ocon in the Porsche Williams and Piastri in the Ferrari getting knocked out. Schumacher making it out into Q2 after what was a pretty horrendous opening round for Ferrari with a double DNF, so they'll be wanting to try and kickstart their season a bit more here around Sao Paulo. 2 opportunities to maybe score points at the sprint, and then the full Grand Prix for us. We're trying to get through into that top 10 shootout to set ourselves up as best we can, and we just narrowly make it through. So clearly our car here, with the lack of aero around Sao Paulo, there's a little bit less place to hide with that lack of aero, and we only just make it through. Sainz P11, best of the rest. But last race's race winner, Sebastian Vettel, got knocked out. Bottas made it through, but it's Vettel's turn this time for one of the Audi sport cars to not make it into the top 10 shootouts. That's our first big shock exit of a qualifying session this season. Remember, last season in Season 3, we saw quite a few of them consistently. You know, every episode there'd be one big name that just didn't get the time in Q2, got knocked out, and it kind of, you know, leveled out and balanced out over the course of the season. So it's Sebastian Vettel's turn today, and I'm sure there'll be a few surprises as we go on through the season, because, you know, traffic can come into play, the track evolution, etc. But here we are then in the top 10 shootout, trying to do the best job we can. I thought I did a pretty tidy lap, but as we crossed the line, with other people already setting their times, I can already see where I'm going to end up, and it's P10. that's where the car is. So in the end, Carlos actually did a pretty damn good job to be P11. We're P10, so we're just going to be one position ahead of him. That's where the car is. So I think, you know, Albert Park, we could use the engine a bit more, I think. Around Sao Paulo, a bit higher speed corners. I think that lack of outright downforce is maybe hurting us more there, and clearly is going more in the favour of even teams like Renault, who seem to be doing a lot better, with Verstappen up in third place now in the second qualifying in his new car. But it's Albon and Norris at the sharp end on the front row. Albon still in fine form from last season, but Bottas showing what he can do in the Audi Sports. It's not just Sebastian Vettel to watch out for in that Works Audi team. It is Bottas up there in P4 as well. Very competitive stuff, though, for us to be down in P10 here with a lot of quick cars and drivers ahead of us. So it's going to be an interesting sprint race that will set up the grid, remember, then, for Sunday. So it's not just about points. It's also effectively a qualifying session for Sunday. So let's go to that grid.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint.
Overcast conditions here on Saturday for the F1 sprint in Sao Paulo. From 10th place on the grid, we go to fiery lights and we're underway. It's a real slow getaway for us again. It seems like this year's car, we just can't get it off the line quick enough, as Alonso once more shoots it down the inside of a turn 1 in his new Andretti car, and he's up into P10. Sainz almost got us. He's now in a scrap with Sebastian Vettel, who's already made up about 5 places, it would seem. Up into P12 then, stonking star for the Weltmeister, but we're caught up now behind Alonso again, looking to re-overtake him. I don't know what it is with this year's car, but I just can't seem to get the power down or just the traction I need versus the AI around me. You know, Australia, I thought it was maybe the tyre difference, but we're all in the medium compound, so clearly there's something I need to work on, maybe on these race starts. We do get Fernando back up into P10. Of course, we're in a better car than he is, so we should be able to get him eventually, you'd like to think. But here's a replay then of Vettel, because he overtook not one, but 2, 3 cars into turn 1, and then looked to also get Carlos Sainz then. So up about 4 positions from where he qualified. So Vettel doing a great effort to try and catapult himself up this order, not just to try and maybe get some points in this sprint race, but remember, just get a higher grid slot for Sunday's race. As now we're having a look at Sergio Perez in the Renault on the inside, hustling and harrying him, and eventually it's actually quite an easy, simple pass to the inside up the hill into sector 2. Meanwhile, replay here showing Fernando Alonso making an uncharacteristic error into turn 1, double lockup, and Vettel is able to overtake him, as well as his fellow compatriot Sainz up the order. So small mistake from Alonso there, and you know, maybe colder conditions with the clouds out, so maybe that maybe just affected him a little bit into turn 1, who knows. But we're back on board with ourselves, lap 3, so we're flowing through this shortened sprint race. Leclerc with DRS off his teammate, that's going to help him out, but we're trying to suss out where we can go. We thought about the inside, but no, the outside to the inside for the center S, but the back end steps out, and Leclerc is able to defend quite successfully. We thought about trying to commit to the inside there, like Verstappen did on Hamilton in the real-life Grand Prix, but we thought better of it, and instead we're going to be a bit more patient and wait for the next time round to try and overtake him, try and get this done into turn 1, to try and get the elbow out, basically, into the second part of the center S, down the inside, DRS and ERS aided. Leclerc a bit wide, actually, into that entry, so that helps out a bit, and we're up into P8 then, so that's 1 championship point now in this sprint, but also P8 on the grid for tomorrow's full Grand Prix. Bit of time to gain on Russell ahead, but if you look closer at the halo and the chassis, it's starting to rain in this sprint. I checked the weather report, rain on the way, pretty consistent rain on the way, and the track's getting damp, and Bottas has made a mistake on lap 7. Safety car is out. Albon on the curb. We take avoiding action on the right-hand side, and we have to give 2 positions back because we overtook, I think it was Tsunoda and Russell under yellows. That's fine by me, but rain is on the way, and now Bottas has made a high-profile error, and I'm thinking, why don't we risk this for Inters? Because if my engineer is correct, it's consistent rain on the way. We'll get to Inters by the end of this race, so why not pit now? So I'm pitting. This is the gamble. I'm throwing the dice. By the way, you can see Vettel and Sainz they've got 2 5-second penalties for, I believe, either speeding or gaining positions under that yellow situation where Albon was on the curb. I was able to avoid a penalty because I gave back my positions. I'm not too sure about Vettel and Sainz, so they've been dealt a heavy blow in this sprint either way, because we're all going to bunch up under the safety car. So 5 seconds of penalty is going to feel even more painful, but we've thrown the dice and we've gambled that this race is going to get to full Inters conditions. Right now it looks pretty dry and the grip levels aren't insane, but my engineer said the rain was going to be consistent and we're going slower under the safety car now, and by lap 9 the safety car's in and about half or more of the grid are coming in straight away for intermediates. Lawson stays out on these mediums, but look, it's far too wet for the dry tyres. Leclerc, Ocon, what are they doing? One of the Audi sport cars is up there as well, I think, of Bottas. Even I'm struggling on these inters, let alone on the dry tyres. Can you imagine if I stayed out on dries? Because the computer AI are usually a lot better in these conditions at actually keeping the car going in a straight line, even on the wrong tyre. But I would be in a world of pain. I mean, right now I'm trying to get past Leclerc, who's being very aggressive with the defence. Piastri has joined me on the intermediates and almost overtakes me, so he's for position. We need to fight Piastri as he's also come in on the intermediate. So could this be glory days for myself and Oscar Piastri in the Ferrari? The Ferrari had a double DNF at Australia. It could be a podium for Piastri, or a top 3 in the sprint rather. It's not a full official podium, but we overtake Valtteri Bottas, who's also out on the mediums, and all of a sudden, before we even get to the end of the lap, we are up into first place of this F1 sprint at Sao Paulo. Bottas, Ocon, Leclerc on mediums, Perez is on intermediate, so I think the top 3 may be Sergio Perez, and then Piastri behind me, yep, and then Theo Pourchaire in the Aston Martin in P4, lap 11, conditions still very treacherous, and we make a mistake in the last sector. We just keep the car going across the grass, get back on circuit desperately, but Perez now is going to be invited in. Remember, our car has the worst aerodynamics on the grid, so that probably means in any wet conditions my car's going to feel terrible, and I can confirm it felt pretty ropey every corner. We had an advantage of a few seconds over Perez, so that's going to help us out. We'll defend as best we can and use our engine power on this straight to try and stay ahead. But the thing is, we noticed in Australia our ERS doesn't seem to be, well, it's very effective, but as soon as we stop deploying it, they can have a go at us. And because of a lack of upgrades on the ERS, I actually have to manage that quite a lot. I can't just abuse it every single straight like we used to at the end of Season 3. As you can see, conditions are very tough. We're twitching around, just trying to keep it on the black stuff. And we will just about keep it through. Perez right up the gearbox, but we will come across the line for the F1 sprint win in Sao Paulo. It's our first win of this season. Not an official full Grand Prix win, but we'll take it. The sprint win around Sao Paulo, and it means for the second season in a row, we're going to be on pole position for the full proper Brazilian Grand Prix. I did not expect a pole this soon, and it was a very mixed up and tough day for so many there with that late switch to inters. Perez, Piastri, Pourchaire though followed me through, pitting under the safety car, so that's why we're up there. You know, Ferrari and Aston, they're going to be loving that after a DNF for Ferrari, and then with Aston Martin are really in terms of their performance. For Pourchaire to get a top 4 here is insane. And then obviously you had that top pack of Albon, Norris, Verstappen, Russell behind. Schumacher was able to get up into P9, so the Ferraris, both of them are starting in the top 10 for the full Grand Prix, so they'll be very, very happy with that. In the standings, because of the sprint points, we are now 1 point ahead of Sebastian Vettel in the championship, but we've got the full Grand Prix to come, and who knows what's going to happen there. But we're on pole position. Let's go to the grid.
Formula One returns to Interlagos once again, with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his 3rd championship here in 2012, and just 4 years later Max Verstappen treated us to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. We're racing today then at Interlagos, a historic 2.7-mile circuit and one of the few anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar. 15 corners in total, 9 to the left and 6 to the right, with a technical middle section opening up to a flat-out Sector 3. That gives us our best passing opportunity down into Turn 1. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. It's the owner-driver then in pole position. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Oscar Piastri, Théo Pourchaire, Alex Albon and Norris, Verstappen, Russell, Mick Schumacher and Fernando Alonso, Magnussen, Stroll, Robert Schwartzman and Tsunoda, Gasly, Vettel, Carlos Sainz and Valtteri Bottas, Drugovich, Ocon, Leclerc and Liam Lawson. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. A warm welcome to Anthony Davidson, who's beside me in the commentary box today. Can we talk about Mercedes? We have a number of changes to the aerodynamic regulations this year, and the signs haven't looked good for them so far in terms of getting to grips with those changes.
There are a few downcast looks within the team this weekend. I think they've been hit fairly hard by the new regs. But this is only the first step down a long road of development, and even if they don't maximise their points today, there are plenty more up for grabs this season.
I did not think we were going to be here on pole for the Brazilian Grand Prix, but that call to pit in under the safety car whilst the rain was coming down, trusting our engineer and also just our instincts of if you're being told there's consistent rain, we've got enough laps left, it was worth the gamble. It's paid off. We're on pole alongside Perez in the Renault and with a Ferrari and Aston Martin behind us. This is going to be an interesting race start. We've got a chance to maybe pull away from some of the quicker cars and drivers here today if Piastri and Pourchaire maybe do a bit of a blocking job potentially. We've got a few differing starting compounds, but I think at the end of it is going to be a one-stop for most people, either mediums to the hards or maybe using a combo of the mediums and softs. But here we go then to our second ever Grand Prix in Season 4 on pole position for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go. We faced our car towards Sergio Perez's side of the grid to defend him into Turn 1. He's on the outside, but we get to the apex first and remain in first place of this race. Perez though close behind Piastri and Pourchaire trying to have a bit of a squabble, and then also I'm sure the likes of Norris, Albon will be trying to attack these slower cars, trying to get past ASAP. As you can see, the McLaren trying to go round the outside of Pourchaire. You've got Verstappen versus Albon. Verstappen's actually overtaken Albon in the Renault, and Lando Norris up into P4, the highest car of that pack. That was at the lead of the sprint, but did not come in. And look at Verstappen go! Oh my god, Verstappen's overtaken Albon, and he's now sent it and tried to actually overtake Lando Norris into Sector 2, as we've now got a virtual safety car. I think it was a collision at the back of the grid I saw with yellow flags, so that will just neutralise the race a little bit and calm things down as we get going once again on lap 2 at the end of Sector 1, just trying to gauge this correctly and then planting the power and getting away and gaining a little bit on Sergio Perez there. Piastri actually doing quite well in the Ferrari, you know, to stick with him. So Piastri fancies it today. You know, the Ferrari seemed pretty damn slow so far this season, but maybe in the right kind of situation could just hang on. Speaking of hanging on, Pourchaire is trying to hang on to as many positions as he can, but it's maybe inevitable that he gets overtaken. He's already down to P7. Russell having a go, and it's a really lovely move maybe by Russell on the outside of the exit, the center S. Pourchaire gives him a squeeze, and that might just invite Fernando Alonso into it. Will it be 3 wide? Yes, it will. Alonso dives down the inside, so instead of overtaking, Russell actually gets overtaken by Fernando Alonso maybe. The wily old fox in the Andretti on the outside. Those two will go and squabble, and then you've got Mick Schumacher closing up in the other Ferrari. So Pourchaire actually has a bit of breathing room right now in P7. Fair play. Meanwhile, you've got the likes of Bottas, P11, Vettel, P14, Sainz, P17, you know, Leclerc, P21. All these guys got caught out by not pitting for intermediates, and then obviously that whole mess in the pit lane, I'm sure in the sprint race, probably caused a few traffic jams down the pit lane. So a lot of these guys have a lot of making up to do, and Sebastian Vettel, it's a far cry from where he was at Albert Park, but I'm sure he'll be determined to make his way through. Meanwhile, for us at the sharp end, Perez with the fast lap of the Grand Prix though, and showing some great pace, and we're looking in the mirrors all the time. The Renault is there, and on lap 4 he's going to come knocking. He's got DRS, so he's going to be pretty damn quick. We're a bit defenseless as he goes down the inside. We give him some room to work with. Bit of contact made on the bottom left of the screen, you may have seen, and Perez gets through into P1. A little bit harsh, I feel, from his side, but yeah, racing's racing, I guess, so we'll come back at him and stick with him crucially in the slipstream. I think for us, at least at this point in the season, it's crucial to stick with people under DRS, otherwise they could start to pull away with that better aero in the corners as we now send it around the outside. Bit of a lock-up though to go a bit deep, and Perez fighting it, and again Perez, bit of a swipe across on the curb, and we go off circuit, so we let him back through because I feel like I probably overtook him off circuit by going so wide. But Perez is really cutting this fine, getting elbows out, but we're doing the same thing as we try and squeeze through on the left-hand side now as we enter a brand new lap, lap 6, wheel-to-wheel stuff into turn 1. We're going to try and give him a big old pinch into the second turn, and that's going to upset him a little bit, and Norris now will maybe get through. No, Verstappen is the one that comes through, sorry. As we're talking about it, Verstappen makes a lovely move round the outside of the Brit, and he's all of a sudden on the back of his teammate. Now, these two had a bit of an awkward ending to the real-life Brazilian Grand Prix just gone by. I wonder what's going to happen today virtually. But Verstappen, he's on the softs, as well as Albon in P5 there. So those two, they'll be hoping to make their way past Norris, Perez, probably even myself as well, to be fair, and try and get away and use the soft compound to good use before they come in earlier than the rest of us medium runners. We saw that at Albert Park, how that tyre choice difference played out, and ultimately it's the guys who chose mediums that came off the best, so we'll see about that. But at the end of lap 6, it's a very slow-looking Yuki Tsunoda, and I think he's got an issue. I think he's got an engine failure, and the Red Bull is going to come to a halt at turn 1. Meanwhile, it's an absolute gaggle of cars around Sebastian Vettel. Schumacher, poor chair ahead of him. He's trying to make a move on Schumacher in the Ferrari. Actually goes for a double move as he sends it to the inside of poor chair, and I think we'll finish that move off. Yes, he does. Sebastian Vettel in fine overtaking form as ever, up into P10 now, and we'll have a go at Fernando Alonso. So 7 world titles between those two drivers in P9 and P10 here in this alternate F1 universe of ours. That's going to be one to watch maybe. Meanwhile, Bottas, good progress for him, closing up to Russell. Bit of a gap then to this train, tail-ended by Piastri, headed by myself. Perez well within 1 second, and he's going to come knocking again. We squeeze him to the inside, but he's going to get through. That DRS is so powerful, and look at the bottom right. We really don't have a lot of ERS to play around with. We're really, desperate for those ERS upgrades to come in so we can start to use the battery as and when we want. But right now, we have to be careful about it, and now that's going to allow the two Renaults to attack as Perez locks up, though, and Perez and Verstappen make contact. Perez took Verstappen wide. It was 3 abreast into that left-hander. I just backed out of it, and Perez locked up and went straight on into Verstappen. I think Max has damage. We're still in P1 then. Norris now P2, and Albon up into P3. The two Renaults down to 4th and 5th, but I'm pretty sure Verstappen had a bit of damage. I'll be surprised if Perez also had any, or didn't have any, because that was such a hefty impact, I felt. And then behind, look at this scrap going. Gasly versus Kevin Magnussen and the Porsche Williams. So, and you may notice Vettel down in P18, Bottas P20. I believe they've already pit for their first stop, as well as Alonso as well, onto the mediums or hard. So whether they're doing a 2-stop or 1, I'm not sure of. But back to our fight with now Lando Norris in the Vodafone McLaren Mercedes. Here he comes, lap 12 on the inside. He gives us a big squeeze to the outside, almost on the grass, and that allows Albon to come through. So instead of actually overtaking us for P1, he's been way too focused on squeezing me out. He's allowed Albon to get both of us, And so Albon now leads the race on the softs, but he is on the softs, so he might be coming in pretty soon for an earlier pit stop versus myself and the McLaren. But that was a very copycat move that Norris made, the one that Verstappen made on me here last season, if you remember. Here he comes again on the outside. We're going to dive back down the inside. He's going to switch it from right to left. This is turning into an absolute classic battle here with Lando Norris in the McLaren. It's going to be so close on the exit. We switch again from right to left. DRS open. We've not got any battery though to use. We desperately try to dive down the inside. Bit of contact made, and that may just be me now licking my wounds and allowing, accepting what's happened there, because I actually checked for damage. Thankfully, no damage on the front wing there with the contact we made. But to me, that kind of, with that little snap of oversteer as well for good measure, I think that's the McLaren booked in and overtaken us. He just has too much pace. We're not there yet. We will get there, but we're not there quite yet. So that might be our fight over for P1 in this race. I don't know, because I feel like it may be between Lando Norris and Albon. It depends on where Albon is. He's come out ahead of Sebastian Vettel. But funnily enough, Albon's actually behind Bottas. And remember how far down Bottas was. He was in P8, way behind Albon. Now he's ahead of him. So that undercut has worked wonders. Alonso is now ahead of Russell. So the undercut's been very powerful here around Sao Paulo. But the question is, are the two Audis and Fernando Alonso, are they doing a two-stop or a one-stop? Sainz has gained a bit of time and got ahead of Leclerc and will be trying to get back into this race. But right now it's a very slow start for him. And lap 15, we're seeing Piastri pressurize Perez into a mistake as the rest of us continue on the mediums and try and stretch this tyre. Piastri is up into P3 legitimately in the Ferrari. You got Schumacher fighting Pourchaire for P5, so it's turning into a pretty good race and an entertaining one for Ferrari, so they'll be very chuffed with that. And Pourchaire managing to hang on to this train just about, as we now see Bottas, and look at all this fighting. 3 wide going to this corner, 2 wide behind them, 2 wide behind, with Bottas trying to have a go at Ocon and Schwartzman. You've got Schumacher versus Pourchaire, Magnussen versus Gasly. I can't keep up with all these fights, as Pourchaire is just about going to hang on to the P5. Schumacher trying his darnest to try and get up into that top 5 position, but you can see now Bottas has caught this train basically. Soon enough, Albon, Vettel, Russell, Alonso, Verstappen, they'll all catch these slower cars, and so this traffic may just hurt some of them. And I'm hoping, at least for our sake, myself, Lando, Piastri, Perez, maybe, being in that clean air out here in front, that might have its own advantages. So we're going to continue on and just assess the situation as we go lap after lap. And the situation now is on to lap 18. Lando's in. We continue on into P1 of this race, and we're going to continue going on because I actually fancy converting this from a medium hards to medium soft tyres. We go long enough, and we do go long enough. Lap 22, I've been watching my pace versus Albon's delta time there. I only lost about a second over those next 4 laps, so I think that's been worth it. So now onto the soft compounded tyre. I think it should go the distance. Bit overcast now, so maybe cooler conditions might help us. I'm hoping this could be our ticket to carve through these top positions and get back fighting for a podium. But interesting lineup right now, because Bottas does come in, it seems. Yeah, there he is. Bottas is in for a pit stop, so it looks like the Audi Sport guys, they're doing a 2-stop. Fernando Alonso as well, but Carlos Sainz, our teammate, I don't think he is. I think he's legitimately managed to jump all these cars, and we actually come out just neck and neck. And he's going to get ahead of us. We're not going to fight that too harshly straight into that left-hander. We've got the time, we've got the tyre to try and overtake him later. But if he actually ends up here in the points, fair play, because at one point he was down in P18. So he's had a very, very solid race. Strategic, clever strategy and driving from him to take care of these mediums and take them to the end of the race. So this may be the kickstart he needs for his season now, which is good to see. But we are going to look to overtake him on the inside. Very late lunge, but a nice one nonetheless, up into P6, and we've got Russell, Piastri, and the Renault Verstappen ahead of us, so we could get up into the podium positions today, once again with these softs, and it's a lovely lunge on the outside of Russell there. Didn't even need any DRS, just under braking. The tyre giving me all the grip in the world. We're going to try and break the toe and try and help Sainz out a little bit, because it'd be great to get Sainz ahead of Russell there for a P6 position, but in the end we will focus on just trying to chase after the next cars. Piastri, Verstappen, only about 12 laps to go in this race. We can do this though, we can get the podium, as we're now looking at Piastri, but Vettel, oh no, Sebastian Vettel is out of this Grand Prix as he pulls up in Sector 2 with an engine failure. It's all over for last race's race winner. A cruel way to end his second race, but these things happen. You'd like to think it balances out over the course of this season. We're going to have to see, but that's a shame for him. But for us, up into P4 now with the move down the inside. Bottas showing the Audi sport car really has some truly lightning pace on that two-stop as we close up now for a podium maybe on Max Verstappen in the Renault. Albon and Lando in a bit of a world of their own, especially Lando Norris, but can we get on that last step of the podium? Verstappen defends this, goes to the left, so he's going to shut the door there. We'll go to the outside instead, late on the brake. Verstappen just cuts across us. What was that? What was that? Verstappen just went straight on and swiped across on us, it looked like it, at least from my onboard. From his onboard, he actually just had a horrendous lock-up and made a howler of a mistake and slammed into the side of us. So it is kind of a racing incident because he just locked up, but from my perspective, it looked like he swiped across it. So we've got some damage now on the front left of the front wing, but remember, because these soft tyres, well, in some cases compared to the guys running hard like Verstappen, we're on 2 compounds softer than them, so the grip is still there, and we're actually able to just about narrowly re-overtake Sainz as we're determined to try and carve our way back through, and we're kind of just driving with the understeer. With the lack of aerodynamics on this car, I'm not going to lie, it actually helps a little bit in terms of our car doesn't even have that much aero anyway, so you nick a little bit at the front wing, you're not losing that much compared to if we had maxed out aerodynamics, so we're making the most of it. Russell defensive, this time we brake early and go for this switch from right to left and learn from our mistakes of, assuming that the car on the inside would give us some room on the outside. Clearly not with Verstappen there, as now we see Bottas making his way through on this two-stop, side by side with Sainz. The 2 different Audi cars this is, the Audi Works team in red and black, and our Martini Audi AAR team at the hands of Sainz. And these two are actually having a real good scrap up the hill, still going at it, neck and neck. There's nothing between them really. Bottas on the inside though, and I think he'll just squeeze Sainz out the P7, and he's on fresher tyres, so he's going to definitely go chasing after Russell. May even try and hound us if we're not careful, as we've only got 6 laps to go, 5 laps to go, as we're on to lap 31. Bottas round the outside. Oh, he's made a mistake. Oh, uncharacteristic there. It's been a pretty calm and collected race so far for the Flying Finn, but no, he makes a mistake. Locks up, it looks like, as he tried to make a move around the outside of Russell. So instead, he actually has to re-overtake Sainz now and go again for P7. And it's a lock-up for Sainz now. So the tyre wear is really kicking in for everyone as Verstappen locks up. There's AI mistakes galore going on now as everyone is feeling that tyre wear at the end of this grueling Sao Paulo race. And now it's going to be myself and Russell looking to close up to Verstappen. Russell down the inside, that's where we want to be, but we just didn't have the overspeed with the DRS there, so instead we're watching Russell and Verstappen go side by side on the third last lap. We're going to brake early, nip down the inside. Verstappen takes Russell wide, and that invites us through up into P4, invites Bottas through up into P6 maybe. So instead of Russell actually overtaking 2 cars, he actually might lose 2 here, ironically, so that's going to be a bit painful for him as Bottas is on the inside and surely squeezes him out here. Is Russell going to keep his foot in? No. Bottas up into P6 and might now have a go at Verstappen, and then might have a go at myself even, because we've only got a lap and a half left there, so it's all on the table, and Verstappen's going to have a good run up this hill. We've seen that Renault be very quick. I mean, most cars seem pretty damn quick compared to us. We're running higher wings to try and get that aerodynamics back, but that's making our car a bit draggy, it would seem. Verstappen on the outside, we're going to squeeze him out in the exact same way he did to me last season. We're as harsh as ever on the exit of the second part of the centre rest, and that is a bit of karma for last season and even the contact we made earlier, and that's going to allow Bottas to come through on the outside. We've also got fighting between Sainz and Russell. Sainz up into P7. He's got the Mercedes car, so in the end, Sainz has had a very solid, quite quiet but solid race up into P7. Maybe one more position. You never know. Verstappen could be maybe squeezed out at some point. Let's see what the pace is like, but in the end of it, away from all of this, it's been a dominant second part of that race for Lando Norris. It's kind of scary in the way the pace the Vodafone McLaren Mercedes has shown today in clean air. He wins this Brazilian Grand Prix by 14.6 seconds. That is absurd compared to like the small gaps we've been used to in recent races of career mode wins and podiums. Albon second. Piastri gets third place in the Ferrari. Can you believe it? And we're going to come through for... Oh no, the fuel! Oh no, the fuel! Oh god, we were going to come through for a P4. It's a P6. The fuel. Oh, we lost our fuel upgrades because of the regulation change. I must have been a bit too tight on it and I never checked it.
We've witnessed some great battles around the historic curves of Interlagos today, and they've taken a fantastic win. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on track was: speed. I know it sounds like an awfully reductive statement, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure. And no doubt, they'll be celebrating tonight.
That fuel was so close. I was literally half a straight away from finishing. That is such a cruel way to end. But this man is the man of the day here on Sunday. He's won the Brazilian Grand Prix, McLaren's first win by a country mile. Bit scary. Albon second place and Piastri. What a podium for the Ferrari team that lost so much pace over the winter. Double DNF for Australia. What a result for them. That's going to give them a little bit of motivation to try and pull themselves out of the pit that they started the season with. But wow, what a wacky race weekend. An insane sprint for us, and then a bit of a frustrating Grand Prix in the end of it there with the fuel issue that gets us down to P6. But good to see Sainz, you know, getting off the mark a little bit there, you know, matching us a bit more, and a very good strategy to pull himself, you know, from way down into the points there. Tough day in the office for Sebastian Vettel with an engine failure for his Audi works team. Mercedes, 2 double points finishes, but they've still got a bit of homework to do, as well as Renault, I guess, because Perez fell away in that race with no pace, so don't know what went on there. And also Pierre Gasly, also where was he in that entire race? So even though there were some great wins for some of these different teams, there's also a lot of question marks about what happened to the second driver or what happened to the pace here, etc, etc. So still trying to suss that out. It's still so early days, only round 2 of this season, but 3 drivers level on points: Lando Norris, Alexander Albon and myself on 34. Vettel a couple of points back there. McLaren take the lead by 1 point to Audi Sport. Red Bull third, we're in 4th place, and Ferrari climb up to 5th. That is a bit mad considering they were way down in P10 after Australia. Guys, if you have enjoyed that second round of Season 4, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.